Her husband seemed ordinary to the alien queen until she saw him fight. The sun was low in the sky, casting soft, golden light over the palace gardens. Flowers of colors she had never seen before swayed in gentle breezes, their petals shimmering like tiny stars. Alara walked along the marble paths, her long alien robes brushing the ground, and behind her, Daniel followed quietly. He did not speak much, but his presence was calm, reassuring. The alien court had watched them carefully. To them, Daniel seemed weak, ordinary. A human who was small, gentle, and polite. The queen had chosen him for reasons that the court did not fully understand. Some whispered it was a political decision. Some said it was because humans were simple, and some said it was foolish. Daniel had always known what people thought of him. He had learned early in life that people judged quickly. He walked with his head held straight, his hands folded behind his back, and he spoke softly. That was enough to make many think he was weak. He had not tried to correct anyone. He had no need to. Daniel liked peace. He liked quiet walks, the feel of grass beneath his feet, and the sound of water in fountains. The palace was large, and it held more people than he could count. Many of them were nobles and advisors who liked to talk about strategy, war, and power. Daniel listened politely, nodded at times, and said very little. He had always believed that sometimes silence was the strongest answer. Alara, the alien queen, watched him now as he walked behind her in the garden. She had never known a human like Daniel before. Other humans were unpredictable, loud, or easily frightened, she had heard. But Daniel moved with calm. He noticed small things, flowers, insects, the shape of clouds. He asked gentle questions, listened with care, and never acted as if he was better than anyone. To Alara, he was different, strange in a quiet way, but she had not yet seen the truth. She thought she knew him. She thought he was ordinary. The palace was a place of mirrors and light. Walls reflected colors from the gardens, and halls were filled with voices. Daniel often walked quietly through the halls, nodding to servants and guards, smiling softly when they smiled at him. He did not take attention for himself. He never raised his voice, and he never tried to command anyone. Many in the court laughed behind their hands. "This human is soft," they said. "He will not survive in our world. He will never be more than a symbol." Daniel had learned long ago not to care about whispers. He had lived through things far stranger and harder than this. But he did not speak of those days. No one needed to know. The past was not important now. What mattered was peace and his small life with Alara, walking in gardens and reading in quiet rooms. That was enough for him. The humans and aliens lived differently. Humans were used to simple homes, small gardens, and quiet nights. Aliens had grand halls, technology far beyond human invention, and voices that could carry across a room without effort. Daniel did not feel out of place, though. He moved carefully, learned quickly, and spoke only when necessary. His calmness sometimes made the alien court uncomfortable. They were used to loud voices and quick decisions, but Daniel's slow, careful thoughts made them stop and think. That was dangerous in a subtle way, though no one had realized it yet. Alara smiled at him now. He looked down, then up, then around, as if noticing every detail in the garden. "You notice everything," she said, her voice soft, musical. It was the sound that made Daniel look at her, and he smiled politely. "I like to see what is around me," he said. "It is easy to miss things if you do not look carefully." Alara laughed lightly. She enjoyed his words. They were simple, but they held thought. The court might have dismissed him, but she saw more. She wondered what he had been before he became her husband. She wondered why a human could be so gentle, so ordinary, and yet still hold a presence she could not fully understand. Sometimes, in his quiet eyes, she thought she could see something more, a shadow of strength hidden beneath the calm. The court often tried to impress her with stories of human strength. "Humans are fragile," they said. "They cannot fight as we fight. They cannot survive our wars." They are small, weak, and easily frightened. Daniel laughed quietly at such words once, but never in front of the court. He knew they were wrong. He had survived. He had fought. He had seen things humans were not supposed to see, but he had chosen to leave that life behind. Peace was his choice. Calm, simple life was his goal. And now, here in the alien palace, he had it. The day was warm, and a soft wind carried scents of alien flowers. Birds with long, bright tails sang in the trees. Daniel reached out and touched the smooth bark of a tree. He liked textures, small details that others missed. Alara noticed, and she wondered again at the depth hidden inside him. The alien queen was used to power and display. Humans rarely impressed her. Daniel did without trying. As they walked, servants came and went, bowing to the queen and nodding politely to Daniel. He returned bows with a quiet respect. He never demanded attention, and he never tried to appear important. The court was used to displays of strength, quick thinking, and sharp words. Daniel had none of these, or so they thought. A small boy ran past, chasing a floating orb of light. Daniel watched, his eyes following the movement carefully, smiling. "They grow quickly," he said to Alara. "It feels like only yesterday he was smaller." The queen nodded, her eyes softening. Daniel's words were simple yet thoughtful. He did not talk about politics or strategy. He talked about life, small moments, and the world around him. That was his way of living, and it made him invisible to many. Invisible, that was what he wanted. The sun dropped lower, and the gardens began to glow in the warm light. Daniel sat on a low stone bench, and Alara joined him. They watched the fountains, the water sparkling like diamonds in the evening sun. "It is peaceful here," he said. "You could live a long life without worry." Alara laughed softly. "I wish it were that simple," she said. "The court is always full of whispers and schemes." Daniel nodded quietly. He had learned long ago that words were less important than action, but for now, the quiet moments were enough. In the distance, the palace walls glowed faintly with alien energy. Daniel could feel it in the air, a hum that vibrated softly. He did not fear it. He had faced dangers humans were not meant to face, and he had survived. The court, the alien nobles, the whispers, they were nothing compared to what he had known, yet he kept it all inside. The past was not necessary. He was here now beside the queen, and that was enough. The evening deepened and stars began to appear. Alien stars, brighter than human stars, filled the sky. Daniel pointed to one quietly. "That one reminds me of home," he said. Alara turned her head, curious. "Home?" she asked. "Your world?" he nodded. "Yes, it is far, but I remember it. It was simple, quiet, and beautiful in its own way." Alara listened, intrigued. She did not hear humans speak of home like that often. Most were too loud, too hurried, or too proud. Daniel spoke softly, but his words carried weight. The night grew cooler, and the palace lights reflected softly on the fountains. Daniel rose and held out his hand to Alara. "Shall we walk back?" he asked. She took his hand, and together they moved through the paths, past flowers and statues, past whispering nobles who watched them with curious eyes. Daniel's calm presence made the palace feel different, peaceful, quiet, not weak, not ordinary, but steady. No one in the court understood it yet. No one saw what Daniel could truly do. As they reached the doors to the palace, Daniel paused and looked back at the gardens. He breathed deeply, feeling the night air on his face. He did not need to show strength to anyone. He did not need to fight or command. That life was behind him. What mattered was here in the quiet steps beside the queen, in small smiles and gentle words. That was his choice. That was his strength. Alara watched him with new eyes. She had always thought he was ordinary, gentle, weak, but she was beginning to see something else, something quiet, something hidden. She did not yet know how far his strength went. She did not yet know what he had been. But she sensed it, a spark beneath the calm, a depth she could not ignore, and she liked it. She liked him more than any human, more than any being she had ever known. Inside the palace, the lights glowed softly. Servants moved silently, and the court waited, not knowing what the future would bring. Daniel sat quietly by the queen's side in the evening hall, his hands folded, his eyes calm. The court continued their whispers, calling him soft, weak, ordinary. They did not know. They could not see what he had survived, what he had chosen to leave behind, what he could do if needed. And that was the way he wanted it. The night went on and the palace slowly became quiet. Alara leaned her head slightly toward Daniel. He smiled softly. He did not speak. Words were not necessary. In this moment nothing else mattered. The court, the whispers, the expectations, all faded. Peace, calm, quiet strength, and gentle companionship filled the air. Daniel seemed ordinary. And in truth, that was the greatest disguise of all. The palace was quieter than usual the next morning. Sunlight spilled through tall windows, lighting the marble floors with soft gold. Daniel walked slowly through the hallways, his hands behind his back, noticing small details, the way dusk glimmered in the sun, the way shadows moved across the walls. He did not hurry. He never hurried. Life had taught him that rushing often brought mistakes. The court, with all its aliens and nobles, moved faster, speaking quickly, always seeking attention. Daniel's calmness made him invisible, just as he liked it. Alara watched him from a balcony above. She had spent the night thinking about him, about the way he moved, about the quiet way he observed the world. She did not understand it fully. She had expected her human husband to be soft, perhaps even weak. That was what the court expected. But Daniel's calmness had weight to it. It carried something deeper, something that she could not name. She shook her head, smiling slightly. She liked that she could not read him completely. That morning, a visitor arrived at the palace. She was human, tall, with broad shoulders and a strong presence that Daniel recognized immediately. Her name was Lisa Brown. She walked through the grand doors without hesitation, nodding to the guards. Many of the alien nobles stared, whispering to one another. Humans were rare here, and this one seemed confident, strong, and self-assured. Daniel's heart stirred, though he did not show it. "Daniel," Lisa said quietly when she saw him. Her voice was calm but firm. "It has been a long time." Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly. He recognized her immediately. She had been a commander once, long ago, someone who knew him in a different life. "Lisa," he said softly, "I did not expect to see you here." Lisa smiled faintly. "I came for the diplomatic guard. There are rumors of trouble. You might want to be careful." Alara had watched from the balcony and now moved closer. She did not understand the exchange, but she noticed the respect in Daniel's eyes when he spoke to Lisa. She had not seen him speak to anyone like that before. To her, he always seemed polite, gentle, and ordinary. But with Lisa, something in him shifted. It was subtle, almost invisible, but she noticed. "I will be fine," Daniel said. His voice was calm, controlled. He did not raise his voice, did not seem nervous, but Alara could feel the weight in his words. Lisa glanced around the hall, her eyes sharp. "The palace is not as safe as it seems," she said. "Enemies are moving closer. I am here to help." Alara stepped forward, her curiosity overcoming her caution. "You know him?" she asked. Her voice was soft, but it carried authority. Lisa nodded. "We fought together once. He was remarkable. You should be careful what you see, Your Majesty. There is more to him than he shows." Alara's heart skipped a beat. "More?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel looked at her briefly, then away. He did not explain. He had chosen a quiet life for a reason. The past was not meant to follow him here. But now it was beginning to appear in small, quiet hints. Over the next few days, the palace prepared for an inspection by the Council of Alien Nobles. Daniel moved quietly among them, helping where he could, noticing small details. He observed the guards' stances, the positioning of patrols, the patterns in the gardens. Lisa watched him silently from a distance. She saw the way his eyes flicked from detail to detail, the way he moved without drawing attention, yet seemed aware of everything. "This is him." one of the nobles whispered to another. The human who is soft, weak, ordinary, Lisa smiled faintly. You have no idea, she said. Alara watched them speak quietly and felt a growing curiosity. She could see that Lisa's presence affected Daniel. It was subtle, but there was respect, recognition, and perhaps something more. She could feel the calm power beneath his gentle exterior, and it unsettled her in a way she did not expect. That evening, Daniel sat in the palace library. Books from Earth, books from alien worlds, scrolls and records of battles and diplomacy surrounded him. He touched the spines carefully, remembering times long ago. Lisa entered quietly. You still read like you are looking for answers, she said, her voice soft but firm. Daniel looked up and nodded. I always do. It is how I learn, it is how I remember. Lisa walked closer. You have hidden a lot, she said. It is good that you chose peace, but you are not ordinary, Daniel, you never were. He smiled faintly, not angry, not defensive. I chose this life, quiet, peaceful, it is enough for me. Lisa shook her head, understanding. It is enough for you, but you must remember the world you left. You cannot forget who you were. Daniel's eyes darkened slightly. I do not forget, I only leave it behind. Alara, listening from the doorway, felt a mixture of curiosity and confusion. She did not understand the details of their past, but she could feel the truth in Lisa's words. There was power in Daniel that no one had seen. Strength, skill, knowledge of battles she could not imagine, yet he had chosen to hide it. That choice fascinated her more than his strength itself. Days passed, and small incidents began to occur in the palace. Guards reported strange shadows moving at night, small disturbances in the outer walls, whispers of enemies approaching. The court became restless. Many of the alien nobles began to panic, discussing strategy loudly, pointing fingers at each other. Daniel, however, remained calm. He moved quietly through the halls, checking doors, observing patterns, speaking softly to the guards, helping where he could without drawing attention. Lisa watched him and could not hide her admiration. You do not need to fight, she said one evening. But if you do, you will change the world. Daniel nodded slightly. I hope it will not come to that, but if it does, his words hung in the air. He did not need to finish. Lisa understood perfectly. Alara noticed the way Daniel moved among the chaos. Calm, polite, careful. Nothing about him suggested a warrior. Nothing about him suggested that he could command armies, face enemies, or survive battles where others would fail. Yet there was a presence, a weight, something that made even the alien nobles hesitate when he entered a room. She could not name it, could not explain it, but she could feel it. One afternoon, Daniel walked through the gardens alone. He touched the leaves of strange plants, smelled the air, listened to distant water. He felt a shadow in the palace. Something was coming. He did not know what, but instinct told him to prepare. He had learned long ago to trust instinct. It had saved him many times. Alara found him there, sitting on a low stone bench, hands folded in his lap. What is wrong? She asked softly. Daniel looked at her, calm, eyes steady. Nothing yet, but we must be ready. Something approaches. Alara frowned. She had never seen him like this. Calm, yes. Gentle, yes. But alert, sharp, aware. It was different from the ordinary human she believed him to be. Do you think it will come? She asked, her voice quiet. Daniel nodded slightly. I do not know, but if it does, we will face it. Lisa appeared then, silently, standing a few steps behind. He is right, she said. Trouble is coming, but do not fear, he will handle it. Alara's heart quickened. She looked at Daniel, at the quiet human who walked behind her in the garden every day, and she felt a strange mixture of fear and awe. She had never realized how little she truly knew him. The gentle walks, the quiet words, the calm smiles, they hid a depth, a skill, a strength she could not imagine. The palace grew darker as evening approached. Daniel walked slowly back to the main hall, Lisa following. Alara stayed near the windows, watching. She could see him, small and unassuming, yet carrying an invisible weight. She could feel it. The whispers of the court, the judgments of the nobles, all of it mattered little. There was something in him that no one understood, and soon she realized the court would see it too. For the first time, Alara began to wonder, what kind of man had she married? What did she truly know about Daniel? And what would happen when the world finally discovered the truth behind the quiet human who seemed so ordinary? She did not know the answers yet, but she could feel them coming. And in her heart, she knew one thing clearly: Daniel was not what he seemed, not soft, not weak, not ordinary. And soon, the palace, the court, and even she herself would see the warrior hidden behind the calm eyes of the human who walked quietly beside her every day. The palace was alive with movement that morning. Servants hurried along the marble halls, carrying trays of food and messages. Guards moved in careful patterns, checking doors and windows, their weapons gleaming in the pale light. Daniel walked among them quietly, his hands behind his back, his eyes scanning everything. Something in the air felt wrong. He could not say exactly what, but instinct told him to pay attention. Years of experience had taught him to notice small signs, shadows, sounds, changes in the wind. Alara followed him from a short distance, curious and uneasy. The alien queen had spent her life surrounded by danger, yet she trusted the palace walls to protect her. Now, with Daniel beside her, she began to feel a strange mix of calm and tension. The human walked as if nothing was happening, yet the look in his eyes told a different story. She could feel it. Something was coming, and he knew it before anyone else. Lisa Brown appeared in the courtyard, her presence sharp and confident. "They are close," she said to Daniel quietly. He nodded, his eyes scanning the outer walls. "I know," he replied softly. "We must be ready." The day moved slowly. Courtiers continued their discussions, some ignoring the unease that had settled over the palace. Others whispered quietly, sensing something but not understanding it. Daniel moved through them calmly, speaking softly when necessary, directing guards, checking entrances. He did not rush, but every movement was precise, measured, controlled. To the court, he looked ordinary. But Lisa watched him carefully, noting the subtle changes in his posture, the way his eyes flicked to every corner. She had seen warriors like him before, and she knew what he was capable of. Then it happened. A sharp alarm sounded through the palace. Metal gates rattled and the outer walls trembled under sudden force. Guards shouted and the courtiers screamed. The palace had been attacked. Alara froze, her heart raced. She had never felt fear like this inside her walls. The court was thrown into chaos. Nobles ran for safety, servants hid, and the guards tried to form lines. But the attackers were fast, moving with precision and strength. Daniel did not move quickly. He moved calmly. His hands stayed behind his back for a moment longer, his eyes taking in every detail. He watched the attackers, studied their formation, and made a decision. "Clear the hallways," he said quietly but firmly. His voice did not panic, yet it carried authority. Guards obeyed without question, moving aside to let Daniel step forward. Alara ran to him almost instinctively. She did not know why, but she felt safer beside him. He turned his head briefly, meeting her gaze. "Stay close," he said softly. The attackers broke into the main courtyard. They were strong, armed with strange weapons that glowed with energy. Daniel stepped forward, moving with speed and skill that surprised even Lisa. He dodged the first strike with a calm ease, twisting his body in ways that seemed impossible. Then he struck back. His movements were precise, strong, controlled. Each attack was measured, each defense perfect. The palace guards hesitated, staring in shock. This ordinary man, so gentle, so soft, was a master of combat. Alara could not believe her eyes. The quiet human who walked beside her every day, who read books and spoke softly, was now a whirlwind of strength and skill. His movements were faster than any human she had seen, almost as if he anticipated every attack before it happened. The attackers faltered, stepping back as Daniel moved with lethal precision. Lisa fought nearby, covering his flank, but she watched him more than she fought. "He has not changed," she whispered to herself. "Still perfect, still deadly." Daniel moved toward the palace gates, pushing back the attackers who tried to break through. Guards followed his lead, gaining confidence from his calm courage. The nobles in the halls peered from behind pillars, whispering to each other. "He is extraordinary," one of them said, barely able to breathe. "This human, he is not ordinary at all." Alara ran beside him, her robes flowing behind her. She could feel his strength, the careful control in every movement. She had always believed he was gentle and weak, but now she realized how little she had understood. Each step he took was deliberate, each strike precise. He moved like a man who had survived wars, who had fought countless battles and survived. And yet, he did not seem angry. He did not seem to enjoy the fight. He fought to protect, not to destroy. The attackers tried to surround him, but Daniel never panicked. He ducked, twisted, and struck back with a skill that left them off balance. His strikes were not brutal but efficient. Every movement counted. He disarmed one attacker, used a shield to block another, and moved past a third without harming him unnecessarily. He was in complete control. Alara watched in awe. She had seen warriors before, elite fighters, generals, even her own royal guards. But Daniel's skill was different. It was quiet, precise, and almost invisible until it was too late for the attackers. Her heart swelled with pride and fear at the same time. She realized she had underestimated him completely. Lisa moved closer, shouting directions to the guards. "Cover the doors. Keep them from entering the hall," she said. But even she knew that Daniel was the key to turning the battle. She watched as he moved like a shadow, striking when necessary, dodging when necessary, never wasting a moment or a step. The courtyard became a controlled chaos. Attackers were thrown back, guards gained courage, and the palace slowly began to regain control. Daniel did not rest. His calmness was unshakable. He moved through the battle like he had been born for it, as if the quiet life he had lived before was only a mask for the strength beneath. Alara realized something then, something that made her heart pound. The man she had believed to be ordinary, gentle, and soft had chosen to hide his strength. He had left the life of war behind, but that strength had never left him. And now, in the palace under attack, it was fully revealed. The attackers began to retreat. They had not expected such skill, such precision, such calm power. Daniel did not chase them immediately. He stood in the center of the courtyard, scanning, ready for any trick, any sudden move. The guards looked at him with new respect. The nobles whispered to each other, unable to comprehend what they had just seen. Alara ran to him, holding his arm. "Daniel," she said, her voice trembling. I did not know." He looked at her, calm but tired. "It was never about showing them," he said softly. "I only act when necessary. This palace is yours, I protect it." She could feel the weight of his words. He did not fight for glory, for power, or for recognition. He fought because it was right, because it was necessary. And that made him more extraordinary than anyone she had ever known. Lisa came up beside them, breathing heavily but smiling faintly. "You have not changed," she said. "Still careful, still strong, still remarkable." Daniel nodded, not proud, not boastful. "It is over," he said. "For now." Alara looked around at the courtyard. Guards were helping the wounded. Nobles were whispering in awe. And Daniel, the man she had thought ordinary, was standing calmly, quiet, controlled, his eyes still scanning for danger. She realized then that she had never truly understood him. Not before and not until this day. The palace would never be the same. The court would never look at him the same way. And neither would she. Daniel had shown his true self, not with words, not with arrogance, but with action. The ordinary man had revealed the warrior. And in that revelation, Alara felt a mixture of pride, awe, and something deeper, something she could not yet name. She reached out, holding his hand. I see you now," she said softly. He squeezed her hand gently, his eyes meeting hers. You always knew, he said. You just did not know what to see. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the palace walls. The courtyard was quiet now, except for the sounds of recovery and cleanup. Daniel stood tall, calm, and strong, and Alara knew that she had witnessed the true depth of the human beside her. The ordinary mask was gone. The warrior beneath was clear for all to see. And in that moment, she understood that the galaxy would have to learn something new. Humans were not weak, not soft, not ordinary. And her husband was the perfect example. The palace was quiet again, though the air still carried the smell of smoke and scorched stone. Guards moved cautiously through the halls, checking every door and corridor. Courtiers whispered nervously, their faces pale. The attack had shaken everyone, and the nobles could not stop talking about the human who had fought. Daniel walked among them calmly, his steps quiet, his eyes alert but calm. He noticed everything, the small details, the signs of damage, the expressions on people's faces. Alara followed him closely, her heart still racing from what she had seen. She could not stop thinking about the way Daniel had moved in the courtyard. Every motion had been perfect, controlled, deadly when needed, but careful and precise. He had not fought for glory. He had fought to protect her, the palace, and the people inside. That thought made her chest tighten. She had underestimated him for too long. The nobles gathered in the main hall, speaking in low voices, their words filled with awe and fear. "He is extraordinary," one whispered. "I have never seen a human like that," another said. "Soft. Gentle, not at all, he is deadly." Lisa stood near Daniel, her eyes scanning the crowd. "They are just beginning to understand," she said softly. "It will take time before they accept the truth. Humans are not as weak as they think, and he is the proof." Daniel nodded, his calm face unreadable. He did not enjoy the attention, he did not want it, but he knew the court needed to see his presence to understand that humans were not ordinary. "It is over," he said quietly. "We must focus on repair and preparation. The threat may not be gone entirely." Alara looked at him, her eyes wide. You could have destroyed them," she said softly. "All of them, but you did not." Daniel shook his head gently. "It is not about destruction, it is about protection. I fight to protect, not to kill." Her heart ached with pride and admiration. She had married this human thinking he was soft, ordinary, and gentle. Now she realized how wrong she had been. He had chosen peace over war, gentleness over aggression, and yet, when danger appeared, he became a force no one could ignore. The palace repairs began immediately. Workers moved through the damaged halls, replacing broken windows, mending doors, and cleaning the courtyard. Guards patrolled more carefully, now looking to Daniel for guidance. They had seen his skill firsthand, and they trusted him more than any commander among themselves. Daniel walked among them, speaking quietly, giving directions where necessary, correcting positions, showing small improvements that made the palace stronger and safer. He did not raise his voice. He did not demand respect, but his calm authority gave people courage. Alara followed, noticing every detail. She could see the court's fear slowly changing into respect, their whispers now tinged with admiration. The ordinary human they had laughed at was no longer ordinary. He was a protector, a warrior, a man whose skill could not be denied. And he had done it all without showing anger or pride. Lisa approached Daniel as they passed the armory. "They will not forget this day," she said. "You have changed how they see humans forever." Daniel glanced at her briefly. "It does not matter if they remember. What matters is that the palace is safe and the queen is safe." Alara walked beside him, listening. "But I had no idea," she said softly. "I thought I knew you, Daniel. I thought you were ordinary, gentle, safe, but you are not. You are." Daniel stopped and turned to face her. "I am who I chose to be, Alara," he said gently. "I left the life of war behind to live simply, quietly with you. That is my choice. My strength is not for display, it is for protection, for those I care about." Her eyes filled with admiration. She could see the truth in his words, the weight behind them. She had married this human thinking he was ordinary, and now she understood the depth of his courage, the measure of his skill, and the choice he had made to live a peaceful life beside her. The nobles began to gather in the main hall for a formal report. Daniel stood quietly to the side, letting the council speak. They could not hide their awe. Each word about the battle, about the human who had defended the palace, was careful, measured, but filled with amazement. Whispers spread. The human was not ordinary, the human was deadly, the human was calm and in control. Alara watched Daniel. He did not respond to their whispers. He did not seek their approval. He simply stood there calm, observing, ensuring the palace remained safe. She realized that was his greatest strength. He did not fight for praise. He did not fight for power. He fought because it was right. Lisa moved beside her. "They will learn," she said. "The court will respect him now. They may not understand him fully, but they will not underestimate him again." Alara nodded slowly. "I understand him now," she said softly, "and I am proud, so proud." The rest of the day passed in quiet repair. The palace staff worked tirelessly, guided by Daniel's calm instructions. He moved among them, correcting small mistakes, offering advice, and ensuring that every corner was secure. Guards who had seen him fight were no longer nervous. They moved with confidence, inspired by the calm power of the human who had protected them all. In the evening, Daniel and Alara walked in the palace gardens. The flowers were soft in the fading light, the fountains sparkling in the sunset. The air smelled of wet stone and fresh leaves. Daniel walked calmly beside her as he always did. But now, Alara's eyes saw more than his gentle face. She saw the depth, the control, the strength that had been hidden behind his calm exterior. "You could have destroyed them," she said softly. "All of them, but you did not," he smiled faintly. "I only did what was necessary. Strength without control is dangerous. Anger is dangerous. I chose calm. I chose protection." She looked at him, her heart full. "I thought I knew you," she said, "but I had no idea how strong you really are, how careful, how precise, how much power you carry without needing to show it." Daniel took her hand gently. "I chose peace, Alara. That is my true strength, not the fight, not the skill. But the choice to be gentle, to be calm, to protect without seeking glory." She squeezed his hand, feeling the warmth and weight of his presence. "I will never underestimate you again," she said softly. The night grew deeper, and the palace lights glowed softly in the halls. Courtiers whispered in awe, guards walked with renewed confidence, and the city outside remained safe for the moment. Daniel remained calm, quiet, and alert, always aware, always ready. Lisa stayed for a moment before leaving. "You have done well," she said to Daniel. "Not just in battle, but in showing them what humans can be. You are extraordinary." He nodded briefly. "I only did what was needed." Alara watched him as Lisa left. She realized that the man beside her was far more than she had ever imagined. He had chosen a life of calm and peace, but he carried strength deeper than most beings could understand. The court would see it now. The galaxy, perhaps someday, would see it too. For the first time, Alara felt completely certain of her husband's value, not for his title, not for his position, but for who he truly was. Gentle, careful, calm, and infinitely powerful when it mattered. She knew, as she walked beside him in the quiet palace gardens, that the court would never forget the day the ordinary human had become a warrior, and she would never forget it either. Daniel, the man she had thought was ordinary, had revealed himself fully. And she knew this was only the beginning of understanding what it truly meant to be human, and how dangerous and strong and careful humans could be when they chose to fight. The night passed quietly, but the palace had changed forever. Whispers of the human warrior spread slowly, and the court began to look at Daniel with a mixture of fear and respect. Alara stayed near him, holding his hand, knowing that she had chosen not just a husband, but a protector, a force, and a man who had the power to change the way her entire world saw humans. And Daniel walked beside her, calm, gentle, and quiet, carrying strength hidden beneath the surface, waiting for whatever might come next. The palace was quiet in the early morning light. Guards walked slowly through the halls, checking doors and gates. Courtiers gathered in small groups, speaking in hushed voices. The news of the attack and Daniel's actions had spread quickly. Many of the nobles had finally seen what Alara already knew. The man they had thought ordinary was anything but ordinary. Daniel moved through the palace calmly, his hands behind his back, observing everything. Broken doors had been repaired, and minor damages were being corrected. He spoke quietly to the staff, offering small instructions, correcting positions of guards and checking the walls for weak points. He did not hurry. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. His presence alone was enough to give people courage. Alara walked beside him, her eyes following every movement. She could not stop thinking about the battle. The way Daniel had fought, with calm precision and strength that no one had expected, had left her in awe. She had always believed she knew him, believed he was gentle and ordinary. Now, she understood that his calmness had always hidden great power. The nobles gathered in the main hall for a formal report. They had been instructed to acknowledge the events of the attack and Daniel's actions. As they spoke, it was clear that their fear had turned into respect. The whispers about the ordinary human had changed. Now they spoke of him as a protector, a warrior, a man whose strength could not be denied. Alara listened quietly, holding Daniel's hand. She could see the pride in the eyes of the guards and the fear mixed with respect in the nobles' faces. Daniel did not seem to notice or care. He simply stood tall, calm, and alert, watching over the palace, ensuring that everything was in order. Lisa stood nearby, smiling faintly. "They are beginning to understand," she said softly. "Humans are not weak." "And he has shown them that." Daniel nodded quietly. "It does not matter if they understand fully," he said. "What matters is that the palace is safe and that the queen is safe." Alara looked at him, her heart full of admiration. "You have done more than I ever imagined," she said softly. "More than any human, more than any warrior I have known." He smiled faintly, not proud, not boastful. "I only did what was necessary," he said. "Strength without control is dangerous. Anger is dangerous. I fight when needed. I protect when needed. That is enough." The court slowly began to accept this truth. The whispers of disbelief faded, replaced by quiet admiration. The guards who had witnessed Daniel fight were no longer hesitant. They moved with confidence, inspired by his calm courage and careful skill. Even the nobles who had doubted him could not ignore what they had seen. Alara led Daniel to the balcony overlooking the gardens. The sun was low, casting soft light across the palace. Flowers shimmered in the gentle wind, fountains sparkled, and the palace walls glowed in the warm light. She looked at him, seeing not just her husband, but the man who had changed the way everyone around him would see humans forever. "You could have destroyed them," she said softly, "but you did not." Daniel's eyes met hers. "I did only what was necessary. Strength is not for showing. Power is not for pride. I fight to protect, not to conquer." Alara squeezed his hand. "And that is why you are extraordinary. Not because of your skill, but because of your choice. You chose peace, even though you could fight and win. That is a kind of strength no one can match." Daniel looked at her quietly, his face calm. "Peace is always stronger than war," he said. "Calm is always stronger than anger, and love is stronger than everything." Alara felt her heart swell. She realized fully that she had married not just a human, but a man who carried the weight of countless battles, the skill of a warrior, and the wisdom to choose gentleness. He had left that life behind for her, for peace, and for a quiet life beside her. The nobles began to gather around the gardens, curious and hesitant. They had come to see the human who had defended the palace. Daniel did not speak to them. He did not need to. His calm presence, the careful way he held himself, and the quiet authority in his eyes told them all they needed to know. They bowed to him, some reluctantly, some with awe, but all with respect. Alara stood beside him, feeling proud. "They understand now," she said softly. Daniel shook his head slightly. "They may never understand fully," he said, "but they will respect what is necessary." The day passed slowly. Workers continued to repair the palace, guards patrolled carefully, and the court adjusted to the new understanding of Daniel's presence. The attack had changed them all. The human they had thought ordinary was no longer ordinary. He was a protector, a warrior, a calm force that could not be ignored. As evening fell, Daniel and Alara walked through the palace gardens again. The air was cool and the flowers glowed softly in the fading light. The fountains sparkled, and the sounds of water and wind filled the quiet air. Daniel moved with his usual calm, his eyes scanning everything. Alara followed closely, her hand in his. "You have shown me more than I ever imagined," she said softly. "Not just your skill, but your heart, your choice, your calm." He smiled faintly. "I did not fight to show you. I fought because it was necessary. I choose peace, but I act when needed. That is all." Alara shook her head. "It is more than enough. You are extraordinary, not because of how you fight, but because of who you are." Daniel stopped and looked at her. "I chose to leave the past behind," he said. "To live quietly, peacefully with you. That is my true strength. Not the battle, not the skill, but the choice to protect, to love, and to live calmly." Alara felt tears in her eyes. She had always thought he was ordinary, gentle, and soft. Now she understood that his calmness had hidden great power, skill, and wisdom. He had chosen her, peace and love over all else. And that was the most extraordinary thing of all. The stars appeared in the sky, bright and distant. Daniel and Alara stood together, holding hands, watching the night. The palace had been attacked, the court had seen the truth, and the city was safe for now. But more importantly, Alara had seen the truth of her husband. He is not just a human, she thought. He is a force. Calm, careful, strong, and wise, and he is mine. Daniel turned to her and smiled softly. "Whatever comes next, we face it together," he said. She nodded, feeling the full weight of his words. Together. That was what mattered. Together, calm, careful, and strong. Together, she and the human she had thought ordinary could face anything. The palace lights glowed softly, and the gardens were quiet. The nobles and guards had learned something new about humans. Daniel had changed their understanding forever. The ordinary mask was gone. The warrior beneath had been revealed, and the quiet, calm human beside the queen had shown that strength and choice mattered more than pride or power. Alara rested her head on his shoulder. "I understand you now," she whispered. "I understand why the galaxy will fear humans. And I understand why I love you." Daniel held her gently, his calm eyes reflecting the stars above. "You have always understood me," he said softly. "You just needed to see what I choose to show." The night passed quietly. The palace was safe. The court had respect for the human warrior, and Alara knew that she had married not just a husband, but a man of incredible skill, calm, and courage. He had chosen peace, and that choice was stronger than any weapon or army in the galaxy. And Daniel walked beside her, calm, gentle, and extraordinary, carrying strength, wisdom, and love in every quiet step he took. The galaxy would never forget that day. Neither would she. The ordinary human had revealed himself. The warrior behind the calm eyes had shown the world his true power. And the alien queen, who had once thought him soft and weak, now knew the truth. Her husband was far more than ordinary. He was a human, and that meant he was extraordinary.